Honorable the Speaker.
Almighty God, we give thanks to you, the creator of the universe, and humbly beseech you to direct and prosper the deliberations of the members of this house here assembled for the advancement of your glory and the trust and welfare of the people of Trinidad and Tobago. Grant that peace and happiness, truth and justice may be established among us for all generations. Amen, Amen, Namaste.
Oath or affirmation. Announcements by the Speaker.
Honourable members, I have received communication from the Honourable Faris Alwari, MP, Member for San Fernando West, Mrs. Glenda Jennings-Smith, MP, Honourable members, I have received communication from the Honourable Faris Alwari, MP, Member for San Fernando West, Mrs. Glenda Jennings-Smith, MP, Member for Togo Sangre Grande, Mrs. Christine Nualo Hussain, MP, Member for Kamuto Manzanilla, who have requested leave of absence from today's sitting of the House, and from Mr. Barry Padarath, MP, Member for Princess Town, who has requested leave of absence for the period May 24th to June 8th, 2019. The leave which the members seek is granted. Honourable members, correspondence has been received from the President of the Senate dated May 23, 2019, which states as follows. Dear Honourable Speaker, change in membership of Joint Select Committees. I wish to inform you that at a sitting held on Tuesday, May 21, 2019, the Senate agreed to the following resolution. Be it resolved that the Senate agreed to the following appointments. Mr. Saddam Hussein in lieu of Mr. Gerald Ramdeen on the Joint Select Committee on National Security. Ms. Anita Haynes in lieu of Mr. Gerald Ramdeen on the Joint Select Committee on Energy and Energy Affairs. And Mr. Ashvani Mahabir in lieu of Mr. Saddam Hussein on Joint Select Committee on Human Rights, Equality and Diversity. Accordingly, I respectfully request that the House of Representatives be informed of these decisions at the earliest convenience, please. Yours respectfully, Christine Kangaloo, President of the Senate.
Bills brought from the Senate. On the supplemental order paper, the Licensing Committee Validation Bill 2018 in the name of the Attorney General. Petitions, papers.
The Minister of Finance.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I have the honor to lay the following papers. 1. The audited financial statements of the Cocoa Development Company of Trinidad and Tobago Limited for the financial year ended September 30th, 2017. 2. The consolidated financial statements of Trinidad and Tobago Creative Industries Company Limited for the financial year ended September 30th, 2016. 3. The annual report and audited financial statements of the National Investment Fund Holding Company Limited for the financial year ended December 31st, 2018. I beg to move that papers 1 to 3 be referred to the Public Accounts Enterprises Committee.
Honourable members, the question is that papers 1 to 3 be referred to the Public Accounts Enterprises Committee. All in favour say aye. Aye. Any against? The ayes have it. The Minister of Tourism.
Madam Speaker, I have the honor to lay
the administrative report of the Ministry of Tourism for the fiscal year 2016.
Reports from committees.
Member for Laventille West.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I have the honor to present the second interim report of the Joint Select Committee appointed to consider and report on the Cybercrime Bill 2017 in the 4th Session, 11th Parliament.
For Ruka Maloney.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, sorry. I have the honor to present the second interim report of the Joint Select Committee appointed to consider and report on the Constitution Amendment Tobago Self-Government Bill 2018 in the 4th Session of the 11th Parliament. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Prime Minister's questions, urgent questions.
Member for Chaguanas West.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. To the Honorable Prime Minister, could the Prime Minister explain to this House the legal basis for his recent policy decision announced Thursday, May 23, 2019, to place all state agencies under the supervisory jurisdiction of the Ministry of the Attorney General and Legal Affairs on matters regarding the Freedom of Information Act, Chapter 2202.
Prime Minister.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, on behalf of the Prime Minister, Section 76, subsection 2 of the Constitution states as follows. The Attorney General shall, subject to Section 79, be responsible for the administration of legal affairs in Trinidad and Tobago, and legal proceedings for and against the state shall be taken, A, in the case of civil proceedings in the name of the Attorney General. Madam Speaker, additionally, it is recognized by Section 75(2) with respect of the Constitution of Trinidad and Tobago, that with respect to the composition of a cabinet of Trinidad and Tobago, the cabinet shall consist of the Prime Minister, such number of other ministers, of whom one shall be the Attorney General. Additionally, Madam Speaker, the Attorney General is the protector of the public interest. The Attorney General is a legal advisor to Cabinet. The Prime Minister's decision is not properly encapsulated in this question with the greatest of respect. He has not said he is placing all state agencies under the supervisory jurisdiction. What he has said is when it comes to freedom of information applications, the Attorney General must be informed, and he will provide, and his office will provide, the necessary legal advice. Thank you.
Supplemental, Member for Chaguanas West.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. To the Acting Prime Minister. How do you reconcile what you have just indicated with respect to the Constitution with the relevant sections of the FOIA, Section 7, which provides for a designated officer, and also Section 4, which provides for the responsible minister to have jurisdiction over the FOIA Act in his ministry? So the question I have then is, how do you reconcile that the Attorney General, all ministers now, will have to report to the Attorney General whenever there is any FOIA request made under the Act?
Minister in the Office of the Prime Minister.
Thank you very much, and I remind the member for Chaguanas West with his facetious comment, I am still a minister in the Office of the Prime Minister. Madam Speaker, with the greatest of respect, those with law degrees may not always have the practice of law and the ability to interpret the law. I'm not suggesting that of anyone in this House. Madam Speaker, a proper cabinet and a proper administration recognizes that the chief legal advisor is the Attorney General, and every cabinet minister would refer to that Attorney General for his expertise, or if he doesn't have it, the expertise of the Office of the Attorney General. What the Prime Minister has said is absolutely not in variance with the sections that the Honourable Member for Chaguanas West has just quoted. It is actually an additional tier, as the Prime Minister said, to protect the taxpayers. Now, I understand that those on the other side were never interested in protecting the taxpayers. Quite the opposite. As the Prime Minister said, Madam Speaker, this decision was taken to add an extra layer of protection for taxpayers that the Attorney General and his office may be able to prevent unnecessary lawsuits from taking place. That is quite simply all that the decision was.
Supplementary, Member for Chaguanas West.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I think what I want to get very clear in terms of corporate governance, that the Office of the Attorney General now becomes the final clearinghouse for all requests of freedom of information matters.
So is it that?
Is it that?
Thank you. Minister in the Office of the Prime Minister.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Madam Speaker, it is the Office of the Attorney General is not the final clearinghouse, as I try to say as articulately as I can and as clearly as I can. Too much to drink already. Yes, Madam Speaker. As I said, what it is that the Attorney General and his office is best placed to give legal advice and also to be aligned with the government and the cabinet's thinking with respect to these things. This government, and as the Prime Minister said yesterday, he believes that there should be transparency and there should be, generally speaking, unless there are areas of national security or other good reasons, the information should be provided. And that's all that it is.
Member for Naparima.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. To the Minister of National Security, could the Minister inform this House as to why an estimated 101 Venezuelans and several other boatloads arriving at Icacos Beach and Columbus Bay were able to easily evade the lockdown of this country's borders, which the Minister claimed was enforced?
Minister of National Security.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, first of all, the reports from 2 days ago, there were 93 persons of Venezuelan ascent that were found in a forested area in Icacos, in that area, in southern Trinidad. It does not for a moment suggest all came via one boatload. As I have said time and time again, and as I just said in my rush before I got here at a press conference, it is impossible for any island nation to lock down 100% its borders. I was reminding the media that we saw in the 1990s, for example, boatloads of persons coming from Haiti and from Cuba into southern United States, into Miami. I reminded them, for example, of the poor petrified boy Elian, when police were storming into a house in Miami. With all of the might of the United States, they still, for example, face on their southern borders with Mexico, persons coming across, and that's a land-based border. I would like to thank, as he keeps waving his hand in anticipation, I would like to thank the men and women of the Trinidad and Tobago Coast Guard for the job that they're doing with the limited resources that they have, because we do have a finite amount of marine vessels and all are being deployed and utilized. I've seen the mischief being suggested that when they're back at Stobles and back at ports and bases of camp, being refueled, being replenished, that they're not being utilized. Completely untrue. They come back in, and the men and women in Trinidad and Tobago Coast Guard are doing a very good job. And it is impossible to completely lock down and block all of our marine patrols. I'd also add, Madam Speaker, we've been in contact with the Venezuelan authorities, and they have agreed to step up the Guardia Nacional and to use their assets as well over on their side.
Member for Naparima.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Would the honourable member finally admit that he has failed to protect our borders, stop the flow of guns, drugs, illegal immigrants, and therefore give us reasons why he should not resign forthwith as the Minister of National Insecurity?
Member, could you define which question you wish to ask as the supplemental question that I can rule on, please?
Could the Minister give reasons why, in the light of in the light of his inability to protect our borders, why he should not resign forthwith?
Minister in the Office of the Prime Minister.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, as the Minister of National Security, I have corralled all of the arms of national security. I've been working with them to be able to protect our borders as best as we can. And once again, I draw to the public's attention the ridicule that the member for Naparima is exhibiting on the men and women in law enforcement in Trinidad and Tobago, and him and the member for Oropouche East who give these false thanks to the men and women in the protective services, let them take note, because at the end of the day, Madam Speaker, I am not the one on the vessel, I am not the one in the police patrol car on these beaches, etc. But I am thanking all of the men and women in our protective services for the great work that they're doing, whilst the member for Naparima and the member for Oropouche East continue to mock and to make mockery of their hard work and what it is that they are doing.
Member for Couva South, I just want to remind you that your voice can fill chambers with very high ceilings. I want to remind you how low our ceiling is. Please, member for Oropouche East.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Minister, for inviting me to raise a couple of issues.
2 supplementers were already asked.
Only one, ma'am. He asked one.
So, member for Naparima.
Are we talking about question 3, Madam Speaker? Okay, so to the Minister of National Security, could the Minister provide to this House the names of the proposed 5 building sites that will be earmarked for use, as well as to indicate the state of readiness, inclusive of the training of staff, for the 2-week Venezuelan registration exercise, which is expected to commence next week?
Minister of National Security.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, this question doesn't surprise me because the other side are always looking to see who get what contract and how people can be given sums of money. This government has taken a decision, Madam Speaker, to reduce the number of registration centers to 3. We have gone through the process and the logistics, and it is you want to launder more money?
Member, don't be distracted, member. Please don't.
Madam Speaker, so the decision has been taken to reduce the number from 5 to 3. In Port of Spain, we're using the Queen's Park Oval. In San Fernando, we're using Achievers Banquet Hall in Duncan Village. And in Tobago, we're using the Caroline Building in Wilson Road, Scarborough. Again, the multi-agency task force that is mandated to carry out this registration exercise have been meeting. We had a national security meeting this morning where they came and they presented to the members of the National Security Council the plan that is being implemented, and they are well on their way to being able to fulfill the registration process commencing on the 31st of May.
Supplemental member for Naparima.
Tell us about your brother.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Minister, without knowing the numbers of possible asylum seekers, how did the non-data-driven government arrive at the 5 locations as being adequate?
Minister of National Security.
Ma'am, he needs to repeat the question. Oropouche East is disturbing me.
Member for Naparima, please.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. To the Minister of National Security. Minister, without knowing the numbers of possible asylum seekers, how did your non-data-driven government arrive at the 5 locations as being adequate?
Madam Speaker.
Minister of National Security.
Madam Speaker, once again, I draw to the public's attention the irresponsible behavior of those on the other side. This is a registration process for Venezuelans. It has nothing to do with seeking asylum. The government is not dealing with the seeking of any asylum here. Unlike those on the other side, the only way to have an accurate figure, a number, is to have a registration process and to understand exactly how many people are here. We are not in the realm of speculation. We don't do things by VUPs, by VAPs, and by calling a figure. So, for example, the same way they used to grant contracts and say something that should cost $10, I go take $100,000 for that. This government does not behave in that manner. The registration process is to ascertain how many Venezuelans are here.
Supplemental member for Naparima.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Minister, it's a simple question with simple English. How, in the absence of knowing the numbers, did you come up with 5 being adequate? Why not 6? Why not 10?
That question has been asked and answered. Member for Oropouche East.
No.
Member for Naparima.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. To the Minister of National Security. Could the Minister inform this House whether any study has been done on the number of asylum seekers that this country can reasonably accommodate in order to ensure that our social services do not collapse?
Minister of National Security.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, as I've said repeatedly, at this stage, what the government is doing, amongst other things, is ascertaining the exact numbers of Venezuelans that there are in Trinidad and Tobago, no matter how much those on the other side keep wishing the worst on Trinidad and Tobago. No matter how much those on the other side, Madam Speaker, continue to want to destroy Trinidad and Tobago by their actions, their inactions, their irresponsible words and language. This government is going through an exercise of ascertaining exactly how many people are here. Unfortunately for this country, we have not seen the collapse of our systems, our social services systems, our hospital systems. No matter how much, Madam Speaker, those on the other side keep wishing it upon the people of Trinidad and Tobago.
Members, the question time period is now spent.
Questions on notice. Questions for oral answer.
Leader of the House.
Thank you very kindly, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, there are 9 questions for oral answer. We will be...
Members, Minister of National Security, Minister of National Security, and the member for Oropouche East. If it is that the conversation needs to be carried on across the aisle, I suggest that you all go outside, have your conversation, and come back in here. Member for Shogunas West, I need no prompting. I didn't say any pavement. Thank you. Leader of the House.
Thank you, ma'am. Madam Speaker, there are 9 questions on notice for oral answer. We will be answering 8. We are asking for a 2-week deferral of question number 179.
Member for Point Appeal.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Question number 140 to the Prime Minister.
Minister in the Office of the Prime Minister.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the Prime Minister, on this address, the statements he made in his address to the nation on September 2nd, 2018, was referring to the vast number of projects that you're seeing being announced by the government and that have commenced. For example, in the San Fernando waterfront project, as you've seen, they've begun the works down there. Also in San Fernando, this week, Cabinet took a decision to go ahead with an RFP for a new administrative building. We've also looking at the construction of a new car park in San Fernando. We've talked about, in the southwestern peninsula, a La Brea dry dock. There are a number of these various projects that are taking place. The Skinner Park redevelopment, Madam Speaker. There's also the other works that are taking place in the area, as we've recently announced, the Lady Hales housing project. These are some of the projects that we expect that will now provide uplift. And will provide uplift, yes, the industrial park in Point Lisas, that is a go-ahead, a state-of-the-art industrial park with a number of tenants. These are the projects, Madam Speaker, to which the Prime Minister was referring.
Supplemental, member for Point Appeal.
Thank you, member, for the response. Minister, could you, Minister of Communication, Minister of National Security, could you state, you mentioned the La Brea dry dock. Could you state today if the La Brea dry dock has been cancelled by the Chinese harbor, the contractors from the China government, please?
As I said previously, Madam Speaker, it stopped amazing me and it now disheartens me that we sit here in this chamber and see people who have been elected to office continue to wish the worst, upon the people of Trinidad and Tobago. They are always in a most destructive mood. They're always telling the people of Trinidad and Tobago, this wouldn't happen, that would be cancelled, rain on disaster, etc. I am happy to say that we have not been informed that China Harbour has cancelled any dry dock. In fact, this afternoon, they scheduled a meeting with China Harbour to discuss the progress of this dry dock facility and for the continuation of the dry dock facility. And as a representative of Port of Spain, North St. Anne's West, and the people of Trinidad and Tobago, I am happy for any project that takes place in Trinidad and Tobago that is not a corrupt project, like the Beetham wastewater plant, that will take us forward and that will take the country forward.
Member for Shogunas East.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Question number 178 to the Minister of Education.
Minister of Education.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, as I indicated to this Honourable House 1 year ago, construction of the Egypt Oasis Government Primary School, located at Das Trace, Cunupia, is almost complete. The completion of this school was affected by the billion-dollar debt to school construction and the paucity of documentation on social construction left by the previous administration. However, this government has made alternative arrangements to source the funding required and to resolve the contractual mess that we found when we assumed office in 2015.
Well done, Minister.
Barring these unforeseen circumstances, therefore, this school should be completed by 2019. Thank you very much.
Supplemental member for Shogunas East.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Honourable Minister, could you say whether it is there's a time or date in 2019 that we could look forward to the opening of the school?
Minister of Education.
Madam Speaker, by the end of 2019. Thank you very much.
Supplemental member for Oropouche East.
Thank you very much. Very able minister. Minister, bearing in mind this question deals with the incomplete schools, could you tell us when we will find the completion of the Ramai Trace Hindu School in the constituency of Oropouche East?
I rule that question out of order. Member for Naparima.
Speaker, would the minister not find it odd that you continue in every answer to blame 2015 and the problems you met and to explain the incompetence of the government?
I rule that question out of order. Member for Couva North.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Question number 193 to the Minister of National Security.
Minister of National Security.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, further to the... Sorry, Madam Speaker. Given the occurrence of serious crimes against women and young girls, the government is very mindful of attacks against women and condemns all such attacks. At this time, the government is considering the overall effects of legalizing the carrying and use of pepper spray. However, one of the considerations, for example, is that by amending the Firearms Act 1601, Section 2, which specifically highlights prohibited weapons and identifies the use of pepper spray as an offense, it would not only allow women to carry pepper spray, but also the criminal elements. Therefore, a consideration of such an amendment requires a very careful review, which is being undertaken. How could we find a way to exclude the criminal elements?
Member for Couva North.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Question number 194 to the Minister of Education.
Minister of Education.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, as I indicated again in my response on March 21st, 2018, there are several unfinished projects under the purview of the Ministry of Education. The Waterloo ECC Center is one that is still unfinished. The completion of this center was affected, once again, by the billion-dollar debt to school construction contractors and the paucity of documentation on school construction left by the previous administration. However, the government has made alternative arrangements to source the funding required and to resolve the contractual mess that we found ourselves in when we assumed office in 2015. Barring unforeseen circumstances, therefore, Madam Speaker, this center should be completed by 2019. Thank you very much.
Supplemental member for Hoover North.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Minister, at this time, can you say exactly how much money is owed to the contractor on this school?
At this point, I am not in a position, as I indicated just now, we found ourselves in a conundrum, so that we were faced with so many, advances by the contractors that there were no verifications. And we had to go through that whole process. And therefore, it is almost impossible for me at this point to state exactly the amount of money that is owed.
Member for Chaguanas East.
Speaker, question number 186 to the Minister of National Security.
Minister of National Security.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, further to the response previously provided to the House of Representatives, question 192, the Commissioner of Police has indicated that to date a site for the Enterprise Police Station has not been acquired. However, the Commissioner of Police has indicated that the provisional facility located at Lions Gate is still operational and continues to assist in alleviating criminal activities in the area.
Member for Chaguanas East.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Question number 187 to the Minister of Public Utilities.
Minister of Public Utilities.
Madam Speaker, the Water and Sewage Authority, WASA, produces an average of 243 imperial gallons per day in the rainy season and 217 imperial gallons a day in the dry season. However, currently during the abnormal dry spells, the water production from surface water sources has declined by 15% from the rainy season's production as a result of low rainfall. Based on water winning projects currently in train involving the rehabilitation and drilling of new wells, the average production is expected to increase by an additional 10 imperial gallons to 253 imperial gallons by 2019. From a production standpoint, based on international standards, the water we produce should be more than enough to meet our requirements of potable water given our population size of approximately 1.3 million people. This is notwithstanding our high non-revenue water of 50%, which is due to leaks on our aging infrastructure and distribution infrastructure, as well as businesses and citizens from homes and pipes, faulty plumbing, faulty furniture fixtures, and illegal connections. However, as a country, our domestic per capita consumption of 88 gallons of water per day is extremely high and is double that of international standards and the World Health Organization's recommendation of 44 imperial gallons. The excessive consumption has resulted in a supply deficit of about 54.5 imperial gallons in the dry season and even greater during these abnormal times. If countries' domestic consumptions were to match international standards, there would be a surplus of production. Madam Speaker, desalinated water, because of its high capital and operational costs, is the most expensive source of water supply. The cost of desalinated water purchase is approximately TT $10 per meter cube, as compared to the cost of water from groundwater sources of approximately TT $2 per meter cube. There are no immediate plans to increase the supply of desalinated water. The focus in dealing with the demand-supply imbalance is centered around the following, i.e., increasing the supply of groundwater through the rehabilitation and the drilling of new wells, decreasing non-revenue water by repairing, upgrading, and increasing the maintenance work, and demand management with a focus on conservation, public education, and community outreach initiatives and metering. I thank you.
Shogunas West.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Honorable Minister, are you aware that the groundwater that you speak of, that almost all the aquifers in Trinidad and in Tobago are in fact exhausted, and that therefore laying emphasis on groundwater without recharge facilities will make your plan a non-plan?
Minister of Public Utilities.
Madam Speaker, I do recognize that the previous representative of Caroni he has some knowledge having worked in Wassa, but he clearly, in Shogunas East, Shogunas West, my apologies. But he's definitely not an expert in this particular manner. Madam Speaker, based on, we are aware that some of our aquifers are reaching the stage of their critical levels, but there are a number of aquifers whereby we still have the ability, based on the reports from the WRA, to be able to extract some water. And those are the aquifers under which we will be exploring to be able to increase the production coming out of those aquifers, as I realize, at a most cost-effective manner and a cheaper cost to the country.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Would the ministry, to the minister, would the minister consider a policy of encouraging rural farmers to build ponds where they can get water and pump their own supply?
Minister of Public Utilities.
Mr. Wassa and my ministry is responsible for potable water, and therefore that developing of a policy to deal with farmers will be the purview of the Ministry of Agriculture.
Well put.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Minister, on the last occasion you were here, you indicated that the farmers were using contaminated water and you proceeded to deal with certain measures. Could you, as the minister responsible for all of water, not only potable water, could you give this House and the country an appreciation of the amount of water that is allocated to agriculture?
Yeah. Minister of Public Utilities.
Minister, Madam Speaker, I am not in a position to answer this at this point in time, but I'm sure I would be able to provide properly put to me.
Member for Tabaquite, supplemental.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Mr. Minister, you said that the matter of a policy for water for farmers is in the domain of the Minister of Agriculture. But doesn't Wassa have control over all the water in the country, and therefore Wassa should be able to develop that policy?
Minister of Public Utilities.
Yes.
Member for Shogunas East.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Question number 188 to the Minister of Public Utilities.
Minister of Public Utilities.
Madam Speaker, there is no position of financial controller on the staff of establishment of the Water and Sewage Authority. There is, however, a position of Director of Finance, and the qualifications of the incumbent is as follows. A Master's of Business Administration from Heriot-Watt University in 2013, a Chartered Accountant of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Trinidad and Tobago since 2009, a Fellow of the Association of Chartered Accountants, FCCA, since 2006, Certificate in Psychology from the University of the West Indies from 2005, Member of the Association of Chartered Accountants, a Bachelor of Science in Sociology with Management at the University of the West Indies, 1993.
Member for Old Pooch West.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Question number 210 to the Minister of Rural Development and Local Government.
Leader of the House.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, on behalf of the Minister of Rural Development and Local Government, with regard to alleged fraudulent practices at the regional corporations, it must be emphatically stated that any such allegations are treated with alacrity with respect to the investigative process, and if parties are found culpable, swift action is taken to bring such perpetrators to justice. the Ministry of Rural Development and Local Government, in its proactive approach to strengthening of the financial oversight responsibilities of the regional corporations, has commenced a financial forum which meets on a monthly basis to discuss all matters relating to finance and accounting procedures and its management according to the statutes and regulatory guidelines of the Ministry of Finance. As it specifically relates to missing and stolen checks and fraudulent employment slips, the following approaches are being undertaken by the corporations to address such incidences. Occurrences of missing and stolen checks are referred to the relevant authorities, particularly the Fraud Squad Division of the TTPS, with statements being provided for investigation. Where necessary, charges have been laid with the matters being heard before the courts, while in other instances, investigations are ongoing. For instance, following investigations at the Sawa-Laventil Corporation, 875 charges have been laid against the 10 persons connected to alleged fraudulent payments in July 2018. The corporations have collaborated with the banking sector, resulting in the adopting of a coordinated approach as part of the check verification process and increased vigilance of check identification on presentation for payment at banks. Additionally, an electronic funds transfer system has been established at some corporations to allow authorized personnel, such as the financial officer, the accountant 2, and the accountant assistant, to access account information, names of check recipients, and the amount being transferred to the account. Procedures set out in the financial regulations and instructions are observed. These include rigid systems for securing checks, in which blank checks are secured in locked fireproof cabinets, while checks in use are stored in the vault. The key for the cabinet and vault are kept by accounting personnel, such as the accountant 1 or accountant 2. Effective supervisory and accountability measures are adopted, in which the financial officers exercise strict supervision over all officers under their authority who are entrusted with the receipt and expenditure of money and financial documents. A clear segregation of duties is established within the accounts department. Madam Speaker, it should be noted that employment slips are issued to all daily rated employees recruited on a fortnightly basis to meet any shortfall in work teams or gangs. Casual employment is used to supplement shortfalls caused by vacancies due to retirement, leave relief, transfers, and acting appointments, or to undertake special projects. Stringent procedures and practices are used for the issuance of employment slips, where corporations have trained and retrained employees involved to ensure existing procedures are known and observed. Cross-checking. Thank you,
Supplementary question, Orpuchwas.
Honourable Minister, has anyone been charged in relation to the discovery of the 16 fraudulent checks at San Fernando Regional Corporation?
Is this the March 28?
Yeah.
Madam Speaker, I do not have that information.
Supplemental?
Yeah.
Member for Orpuchwas.
Yes. Has anyone been charged for the 32 bags of missing cement at Point 14 Regional Corporation?
That
is not a question.
I'm going to allow that question.
Request for leave to move the adjournment of the House on definite matters of urgent public importance, statements by ministers, personal explanations, introduction of bills, on the supplemental order paper, the miscellaneous provisions, Local Government Reform Bill 2019 in the name of the Minister of Rural Development and Local Government. Motions relating to the business or sittings of the House and moved by a minister.
Leader of the House.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, having regard to the second interim report of the Joint Select Committee appointed to consider and report on the Cybercrime Bill 2017, I beg to move that the committee be allowed an extension of 1 month in order to complete its work and submit a final report by June 28, 2019. Thank you very kindly, Madam Speaker.
Honourable members, the question is, be it resolved that the Joint Select Committee appointed to consider and report on the Cybercrime Bill 2017 be allowed an extension of 1 month in order to complete its work and submit a final report by June 20th, 2019. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any against? I think the ayes have it. Leader of the House.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, having regard to the second interim report of the Joint Select Committee appointed to consider and report on the Constitution Amendment Tobago Self-Government Bill 2018, I beg to move that the committee be allowed an extension of 4 months in order to complete its work and submit a final report by September 27, 2019. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Honourable members, the question is, be it resolved that the Joint Select Committee appointed to consider and report on the Constitution Amendment Tobago Self-Government Bill 2018 be allowed an extension of 4 months in order to complete its work and submit a final report by September 27, 2019. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any against? I think the ayes have it.
Public business, private members' business, motions.
Member for Chaguanas East.
Madam Speaker, I beg to move the following motion standing in my name. Whereas there has been a decline in the educational performance standards and academic achievements during the current government's administration, and whereas the previous computer laptop program was abandoned, homework centers closed, provision of textbooks significantly decreased, and student support services, IT, special needs, school social professionals, school feeding program, and scholarships have all been reduced. And whereas many schools were routinely closed during several education terms because of disrepair, maintenance issues, and gross incompetence of the Ministry of Education, depriving thousands of students of their education. And whereas the primary school curriculum and the continuous assessment component have been seriously compromised, and whereas there has been an inadequate response to school disciplinary and security issues, and whereas the construction of new schools has ceased and an estimated 70 schools at various levels of completion were abandoned with resultant disastrous educational environments, and whereas the school transport, school feeding program, personnel, and other vital service providers are failing to receive timely payments, and whereas there has been a serious reduction in the GATE program, tertiary education participation, facilities and training in the various TechVac programs, among others, be it resolved that the House condemns the government for its gross failure in the education sector and the resultant detrimental effect on generations of students. Madam Speaker, allow me to thank you for inviting me to contribute to this motion standing in my name. I also wish to thank the Leader of the Opposition, Member for Siparia, Mrs. Kamla Prasad Bisasa, who just walked in looking so resplendent and a wonderful child, for allowing me the opportunity to lead off on this motion. Madam Speaker, I also wish to thank my colleague, Dr. Tim Gopeesingh, for assisting in the construct of this motion. Madam Speaker, as a teacher, we'll always have students who disrupt classes. And disruption is nothing new in this house. But, you know, when students are asked to pay attention in the event they may be able to learn something. That is a true learning outcome of education. Madam Speaker, I will show in this motion some of the things that has happened to our education system. And it gives me no pleasure to speak about this and to talk about this, the many recitals in this motion. And for the simple reason, Madam Speaker, that I have served with distinction the education system for over 2 decades. Madam Speaker, this motion is intended to give a voice to students, to parents, to teachers, to ministry staff and officials, to service providers, and all other stakeholders in the education system who have suffered the past 4 years because of the incompetence and sometimes described as wicked and punitive decisions of the actions of this PNM government. Madam Speaker, I wish to begin my contribution by quoting from Nelson Mandela on education. The first quote, "Education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world." His second quote, "The power of education extends beyond the development of skills we need for economic success. It can contribute to nation building and reconciliation." Madam Speaker, the third quotation from Nelson Mandela is that education is the great engine of personal development. It is through education that the daughter of a peasant can become a doctor, that the son of a mine worker can become the head of the mine, that the child of farm workers can become the president of a great nation, that the daughter of agriculture workers can rise to be the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago. It is what he says, Mandela says, it is what we make out of what we have, not what we are given, that separates one person from another. Madam Speaker, there are a number of questions I would like to ask now that have given these 3 quotations. And one of the questions I like to ask is, if education is the most powerful weapon which can be used to change the world, why has this PNM government closed down UTT, NESC, MIC, and White-Up campuses and centers? Madam Speaker, I ask another question. If education, according to Mandela, supports economic success, nation building, and reconciliation, I ask the question, why has this PNM government kept the University of the West Indies, Penal Debe campus, closed for 4 years? You have been unable to open it. Madam Speaker, I ask the question, why has this PNM government kept the University of Trinidad and Tobago, Tamana campus, closed, going into 4 years? You have taken responsibility. But I want to tell you why. The PNM government has hatched on the population of Trinidad and Tobago one of the biggest con job. When you read their manifesto, you will see they have said one thing, and they're doing something else in terms of education, and particularly with respect to ECC, primary, secondary, and tertiary education. Madam Speaker, I ask the question, why has this PNM government kept 19 schools, primary schools, including one right here in Port of Spain, the Belmont RC, Boys RC School, from closing? Why are we continuing to have the answer to the question in my own constituency, where schools continue to be closed? Where schools continue to be closed. And you have not one, you have 2 ministers of education. I ask the question today, what do you have against the people of enterprise in Chaguanas East? Why cannot you tell us? You say the 31st of December 2019. So I am going to announce today to the people of Chaguanas East and enterprise in particular, according to the Minister of Education, that the Egypt Oasis Primary School and the Dastrius ECC Center will be open to students and parents on the 1st of January 2020.
Well said.
I ask the question, Madam Speaker, why has this PNM government kept 37 ECC centers closed? And I will leave that for my colleague, former Minister of Education, because I know he read out over 100 and more schools which were denied. And you know what was the famous saying on the other side? The two ministers? We can't find the schools, we can't find the ECC centers. But I will tell you why they cannot find it. Because it is overgrown in bushes. You have abandoned the children of this country. I have to look at television and see a cow eating grass at the Ramai Primary School, Hindu School. And students are getting up 4 o'clock to go to a temple where the school is housed in Rock Road. Madam Speaker, I ask the question, why do we have 6 government secondary schools closed? Why? And you are saying that you are a government. You will come and boast here today that some of us have education under the PNM. I want to tell you, I got my education by the taxpayers of Trinidad and Tobago. I did not get a PNM education. I got it by the government. And so too when we were in government, between the period of 2010 and 2015, we did not discriminate. We expanded the education system. And I am listening to the member for Moruga Table.
Forgive him, Lord.
I want to say, Madam Speaker, as my friend, he should not be laughing, he should be crying tears, and I'll tell you why. This government, and he sits with the Minister of Education, both of them, and they presided over the closure of the NESE for the people and the children of Moruga.
Yes.
For Point 14 and for Palaseco. These are 3 PNM constituencies. You sat and presided over the closure of institutions, and you will come today to laugh? Are you laughing at the people? Are you laughing at the people who you represent? Is this the kind of discourtesy that you are showing?
We're going to take it away from you.
Madam Speaker, I will continue my presentation. And I ask the question, if education is the great engine of personal development according to Mandela, why did the PNM government deny over 70,000 Form 1 students the opportunity to receive a laptop over the last 4 years? Madam Speaker, as I'm talking about laptop, I want to publicly congratulate the member for Siparia, former Prime Minister, who worked with Dr. Gopeesingh, and I was also a member of that committee. And I'll tell you something, for those who want to laugh, maybe I should give you some compulsory reading. Read a book by Charles Schwab. It's called The Fourth Industrial Revolution. Charles Schwab is the Chief Executive Officer of the World Economic Forum. And then you will understand how societies move from agrarian to industrial, to information and communication, to technology. And you are denying the competitiveness of this country and the nation's children, and you laugh. Madam Speaker, I ask the question, if education is the great engine of personal development, why did the PNM government cut the GATE program from 750 million under the People's Partnership to 435 million in the fiscal 2019? And do you know what they're going to tell us? We didn't have the money. But there are some things that you could use and do better as well with little money, because if you are getting value, I want to tell you, we expanded, and we are proud to say that we expanded the GATE program. We moved the participation rate under Mrs. Bisasa from 42% that we met in 2010. And the target was 60% by 2015, and we exceeded that target. Madam Speaker, people were not denied an education. We expanded not only into academia, but technical and vocational education and training. Madam Speaker, I also ask the question, there are a number of questions I have to ask, since I have platformed my presentation on the basis of quotations from Nelson Mandela. Why did the PNM government cut scholarships from 470 recipients in 2014 under the People's Partnership to almost 100 less in 2018 to 376. I want to ask the question, if you want to take care of your best and your brightest, do you think Singapore will do this? Do you think the US will do this? Do you think Canada will do this? Do you think Mauritius will do this? Do you think Vietnam will do this? Do you think South Korea will do this? Go and read the development of these countries and see how students, it is called in South Korea, the Hagwon. Maybe you should read it and you should write down the word and go and do some research and see how parents and teachers and students sacrifice to become the best and brightest, and you are denying us. And I want to ask the question, if you are going to say to us that you are rationalizing the scholarships, tell this country, produce the report now for the labor market studies and the national needs list that informs the award of scholarships. You cannot show that.
We have none.
And don't laugh about it, because you will be laughing at ourselves on the future development or lack thereof. But I want to tell you, the answers to the questions, Madam Speaker. I ask a number of questions, and I give you the answers to the question. The answer to the questions are as follows. This PNM government is invested in keeping our people powerless. This PNM government is invested in increasing the economic hardships to keep our people distracted from national issues and the public purse. This PNM government is invested in limiting the personal development of our people and keen on keeping our people in bondage. This PNM government does not want an educated citizenry. You know why, Madam Speaker? Educated people ask questions. Educated people are not easily fooled. Educated people do not fall for fake news. This PNM government wants to oppress the people of Trinidad and Tobago. This PNM government wants to impoverish the people of Trinidad and Tobago. This PNM government wants to divide the people of Trinidad and Tobago. This PNM government is systematically dismantling the education system to serve a wicked agenda of self-interest and self-enrichment. And you ask sometimes you ask, well, what is the evidence? You are saying that on what basis? I'm going to give the basis now. In the education sector, this PNM government refused to open a total of 62 ECC primary and secondary schools left by the People's Partnership. Although student achievement levels continue to be a concern, but I will leave that for my colleague, Dr. Gopeesingh, who will respond and rebut some of the things, because you see, it will be easy for them to stand up there and make allegations and insinuations and rebuttals of not of a constructive nature. But I'm sure Dr. Gopeesingh will deal with that in due course. This PNM government refused to open, as I indicated, the UWI South campus. This PNM government has shut down campuses all over, and UTT. As a matter of fact, with respect to UTT, we are being told by a release from the Ministry of Education and the Minister that there were 13 campuses of UTT, and maybe that was too much. This PNM government shut down Petrotrin, the lifeblood of the energy sector, and displaced 10,000 workers. It is alleged in an attempt to cover up an oil scandal. You shut down state-led CNMG and GSL to revamp what? Your fake news machinery. You shut down the TDC, although visitor arrivals are at an all-time low, dropping from 439,749 visitors in 2015 to 375,485 visitors in 2018. You shut down the Seabridge collapse. You refuse to open the Children's Hospital at Kuva, and that is a facility for education and training as well. I want to say, under Mrs. Bisesa, every time the Minister of Health brought a note for the construction of any new hospitals, the members of the cabinet, and I was there as Minister of Tertiary Education, to say, in every single hospital that we are going to be constructing, there should be a teaching facility attached to the hospital. This government season water pumps some farmers who feed the nation. Sorry.
You back to
the motion.
Motion, please.
Okay. Thank you. Well, I just want to continue, Madam Speaker. With respect to the Ministry of Education, this PNM administration has created a 40 billion hole in the Treasury. I want to say over 21 billion, and I'm going to give the figures now that you have brought me back to the motion. Over 21 billion has been spent by the PNM on the Ministry of Education alone in the last 4 years. Can you imagine, Madam Speaker, after $21 billion, the PNM has only completed the Scarborough RC Primary School. Madam Speaker, 21 billion in 4 years, and the PNM has built one primary school in Tobago.
We did 100.
That must be the worst performance of any Minister of Education in the history of education in Trinidad and Tobago. Madam Speaker, the allocations are as follows. 2016, 5.9 billion. 2017, 5 billion. 2018 revised, 5.1 billion. 2019, 5.3 billion. Madam Speaker, after $21 billion, the Londonville Presbyterian School remains inaccessible. And students, teachers, and parents have been forced to use the Jerningham Community Center since when, Madam Speaker? September 1st, 2017. On November 27, 2017, the Ministry of Education and the Presbyterian School Board agreed to provide transport to and from Londonville for the students of the Presbyterian School. Madam Speaker, after 21 billion, absolutely nothing has been done for special needs. There are no public schools that cater exclusively to children of the autism spectrum. There are major training gaps among educators in special needs education. There is no financial support mechanism for the therapy required for special needs students. And what do they do on the other side? They laugh at what we say.
They laugh.
You are laughing at the parents and the children of this country. How sinister can you be? Madam Speaker, I say again, after $21 billion, parents are forced to buy additional textbooks because the PNM government cut the textbook program. And when you go to some schools, as indeed I would have gone and looked at some schools, you are seeing the textbook rental facility, books on the floor of the stores department. They're not properly maintained. And I asked the question, could you also tell us, Madam Speaker, and I asked the minister when he's replying, that publishers are also owed millions of dollars. And you are not honoring these commitments. And I also asked the question, is it true that for the first time ever in the Caribbean, publishers have been asked to pay a fee for the evaluation of textbooks? There have also been inordinate delays in reviewing new textbooks, which are taking more than 6 months, added to which there is a total lack of transparency surrounding the procurement process. Madam Speaker, I go back again to the motion and one of the recitals. After $21 billion, maxi-taxi school transport providers have to beg for their just views because of the manual and inefficient system used by the Ministry of Education. And what we are told that that will be fixed with a new technology platform. Well, tell that to the transport people, to the drivers of the maxi-taxi who have loans to pay, who have family to feed, and who cannot afford to maintain their taxis and also to buy spare parts. Tell them that. Laugh at that. Because that is what you are accustomed doing when we speak here. You laugh at the serious matters. Think to cry, you laugh. Wicked. Madam Speaker, you might cry just now when I start to read out the accomplishments in education, at least on my sector, under the People's Partnership led by Prime Minister Mrs. Bissard. After $21 billion, school children from Cedras, Matlot, Guayagari, and I want to call this name again slowly, Maruga, Sangre Grande, and many others. Communities have been unable to get their students. Madam Speaker, after $21 billion, school children have been deprived of meals 4,000 meals have been cut out. And what do they say as an explanation? It's wastage. I want to ask the question, during the recent midterm review, the school feeding program got an allocation of $24.2 million. How many people are you going to take care of? The contractors, the caterers. How much money do you owe them? How much are you going to take care of their needs? Some of them can't even meet their commitments. They can't pay salaries. They can't do maintenance and repair work. And worst of all, they find it difficulty to meet the VAT payment. Why, as a government, if you are so creative and you're so bright, you don't come up with some mechanism to ensure that the Minister of Finance could give some consideration to these people who are under real scrutiny by the Ministry of Education, and also difficulty and challenges by the banks and financial institutions? Why can you not come up with a mechanism to help them, at least with a moratorium for the VAT payments? Or when you pay them, you tell them, I'm paying you this and you can pay a part of the VAT. You laugh at that because you are not concerned about people. You say you care, but it's a con job that you did, and I'm going to show it again just now in this country. Madam Speaker, I would not go down to any details in terms of the price of the meal, but I also want to tell you, I want to say a little bit now about the primary school, because I know my colleague will go into great detail about the primary school. But I think because I'm moving this motion, it is important I touch on some of these recitals. The primary school system is in chaos, no doubt. The Minister of Education, and whatever I am saying here, he is free to refute it, because these are the facts. We don't only read the newspapers. We look at the school system. We talk to the teachers and the principals. I myself was part of what is called, all the solutions is based on school-based management. Like if school-based management just started under the PNM. It had school-based management long before, and he knows that. He was a principal. I was a head of department. I started as a teacher. I became a form teacher. I became a head of department. I became a dean of discipline. And all that time, as head and dean, I was sitting in school-based management. So don't come with that as something Einsteinian and something out of the box. I also want to say that you scrap the continuous assessment. Madam Speaker, for those people who do assessment, there's formative evaluation and there's summative. As a matter of fact, I don't need to go in here. If you want to talk about the importance of schooling, I'll give you a book to read. The Deschooling of a Society by Ivan Illich. Read it now, man. Learn something. Madam Speaker, what we have to do here is to look at what has been happening. At the same time, Madam Speaker, the Ministry of Education is now before the Industrial Court with tutor in terms of SBAs. You had a problem with SBA, meaning school-based assessment. And in Jamaica, while we have the problem here, the government has agreed to pay teachers $300 Jamaican per SBA script. What? I would have marked SBA when I taught principles of business. That would have been a part of our duties. But on the other hand, the minister is what? Promoting continuous assessment in secondary school, while on the other hand, scrapping the assessment in the primary school. Madam Speaker, I could go on and talk about the fact that more significantly, the changes to the primary school curriculum, rewrite that curriculum, are diametrically opposed to the SE examination paper in 2019. Madam Speaker, in fact, after 30 minutes, some primary school children reportedly broke down in tears, given the challenges with the mathematics component of the SCA examination. I warn this government, suffer not little children.
To come on to the
Madam Speaker, I am reading from a document, an extract, called the Education Policy. I think it's about page 69, 2017 to 2022. And this is what is enshrined in that document. Of course, they will tell you we have to correct it. And when I read it, they will say, but we inherited from you. You inherit everything from us. And for 4 years, what have you done to correct it? You come to write it, to complain it, and to blame us about it. Do your job. And I read, Regular assessment needed to identify academic capabilities of students through student support services. Madam Speaker, the Student Support Services Division basically has 3 components. Number 1, it talks about guidance officers. And guidance officers, their responsibility to some extent has to deal with academic and career guidance. It also has special needs as part of it. So when you look at student support services, you'll have guidance, you'll have counseling, you have special needs, you'll have school social workers. Those are the main components of the Student Support Division. And I ask the question, what is the level of resources that you have applied and you have presented the Student Support Services Division to effectively do their work? Do you have sufficient social workers? And the social workers will deal with social as well as personal matters. We talk about the learning enhancement centers. Madam Speaker, do you know what is a learning enhancement center? When students are suspended from school in accordance with the Education Act 3901, you are sent to a learning enhancement center for remedial work. You're given different aspects of learning. But you know what we have found? I'll give you an example. There's one in the Central Division at the Couva West Secondary School. And I don't know how effective that is, because one of the things that I've found and I've heard is that when these students they have returned to their normal schooling, there's a high level of recidivism. A high level of recidivism. And it has to do with the quality of the instruction and the quality of remediation. Madam Speaker, one of the reasons for that issue in the secondary schools is because many of these students are unable to read and write properly, to have critical thinking skills, and therefore they find themselves in deviant behavior. There was a whole consultation in this country on violence and indiscipline in schools. And if you want to read the report is entitled The Still Small Voice of the Child. It was held at the Sharamas Convention Center. Madam Speaker, I want to also indicate some of the issues and the areas of concern. Number 1, this is the document that the ministry produced, that I'm quoting from. Inadequately trained principals who are ill-equipped. Inadequately trained principals who are ill-equipped to, number 1, manage schools with scarce resources. 2, manage staff and staff-related issues. 3, manage curriculum implementation. And 4, conduct clinical supervision. Madam Speaker, when I did my diplomat, and I won't call the year, I did clinical supervision. The minister and the ministry will talk about clinical supervision. I explained that before, so I wouldn't bore all of us with that again. But if these are the things that we are saying that still is a problem, I'm saying to you, fix the problem and fix the education system. Lack of systems to ensure teacher-school accountability. Slow rates of enforcing disciplinary action contributed to laissez-faire attitude among teachers and administrators. Madam Speaker, I could go on and say a number of things about that, but I also want to now move towards the homework centers. That is also in the recital of this motion. And I want to commend and congratulate our Prime Minister at the time, Mrs. Kamla Persad-Bissessar, who had a passion and a love for children. She herself was an education minister. And under Dr. Gopeesingh, who was responsible for the ECC primary and secondary schools, we found when we came into office, there were only 14 homework centers. And what happened? We had available over 400 homework centers during our time. Why? Because children who are finding difficulty in doing their homework, they can go to their school at this time and get some assistance, rather than to go to school the next day and find themselves lost. Madam Speaker, I want to compliment one of our corporate citizens in my constituency, Kiss Bacon Company, who has spearheaded 14 more and 15 by now homework centers. And I asked the Minister of Education, if you're going to come after I speak here today and tell us you have money, find corporate citizens that can assist you. Find volunteerism of people who are unemployed. Go and ask for the retirees to come and help you. The two notes I took to Cabinet and Mrs. Bissessa gratefully passed was a note called RRW and another one called RRL. It might be useful for the Minister of Education to know those notes very well, because he himself might fit in that category in some time to come. It is called retirees returning to work. And the other one was retirees returning to learning. Madam Speaker, so we talk about the corporation of persons in the community that will assist. With respect to secondary education student performance, which is the first recital, I now wish to say a few words on that. Madam Speaker, might you will tell me how much time I have?
23.
11 minutes? Okay. Thank you, Madam Speaker. This PNM administration has done absolutely nothing to reform the secondary education school performance. And I'll give you the reasons. In 2015, a total of 14,336 students wrote the CSEC examination. And in 2018, a total of 16,004 students wrote the CSEC examination. Of the total number of students that wrote the CSEC examination, 11,615 attempted 5 subjects or more in 2015, as compared to 12,908 students in 2018. Further, of the total number of students that wrote 5 subjects and more, 55% attained 5 subjects or more in 2015 versus 57% in 2018. Madam Speaker, in other words, the PNM has governed over a paltry 2% increase in student performance over a 4-year period. Compare that to the People's Partnership Government, which improved the CSEC attainment rate from 42% in 2012 to 55% in 2015. An increase of 13%. The PNM, it is very clear, continues to underperform against the People's Partnership Government on all levels of national economy, including education. Madam Speaker, I would have spoken a little bit about the laptop, and I don't want to go into too much detail. Maybe my colleague will take up some of those matters. But I just want to say a little bit about what has not been happening. While the world, Madam Speaker, is moving towards the Internet of Things, and for those who are not accustomed to that, that is where you're moving to AI. And I don't know if you know what AI is. Artificial intelligence. I don't know if you know what is cloud computing. We brought Professor Sugatra Mitra here to launch a project for the first time in the history of this country under the Ministry of Tertiary Education called a Hole in the Wall project. We saw it in South Africa. We saw it in India. And you place a computer in the wall, and the passers-by will go and interface with it, and they became very proficient in computers. That is how you move and you inspire a nation. Madam Speaker, there has been no thought given to establishing a proper wide area network across all ECC primary and secondary schools to support real-time access, standardized high-speed connectivity, research, and collaboration. Madam Speaker, there has been no thought given to continuous training and professional development of teachers. And I want to say that I'm proud, as the Minister responsible for tertiary education in the previous administration, where the NESC has trained significant amount of teachers who are computer proficient to teach in the secondary schools. Madam Speaker, no thought has been given to e-testing. And I asked the question, Minister of Education came here before and spoke about e-books. Where are the e-books? How many e-books have you developed and distributed to the schools in Trinidad and Tobago? And in any event, you should not only be thinking about staying with e-books, you should be moving from e-learning to m-learning. And in case you don't know what the M is, it's from E to M mobile learning. That is where the world is going now. That is the kind of technology we're talking about. Madam Speaker, I just want to indicate, as I close on this aspect, that, again, I may want to share with my colleagues on the other side some worthwhile reading, and that might help you. In January 2017, the U.S. Department of Education published a plan entitled, and this is the title of the plan, you could Google it and get a copy and read it, Reimaging the Role of Technology in Education. And this plan focused on 5 key areas: of learning, teaching, leadership, assessment, and infrastructure. And it might be useful for you to compare that with what you are doing in your schools today. Madam Speaker, I now want to come to a very important aspect of my responsibility as a former minister, and that is the GATE program, the Government Assistance for Tuition Expenses. In the 2016, and I want to answer the question from now, because I know they will come to say it, they will say that the GATE program is a P&M invention. Well, I want to tell you, what you took from us and you improved on it was the dollar-for-dollar program of the UNC. And the person that was in, we have two people here sitting right next to me here who were responsible for launching that innovative program called the dollar-for-dollar was Minister at the time, Garcia, the Minister of Human Development, Youth and Culture, and the principal of the University of the West Indies, Senegal campus, Dr. Tiwari. But what did you do? In 2016, the P&M budget, the Minister of Finance boasted that the GATE program was a P&M thing. I just said that. And in 2017, you cut the big GATE program by 50 million, and you promised to cut it by a further 100 million. And I'll tell you something. We were not cutting the GATE program like this. What we were doing is we were efficiency in the system and preventing what we call program hoppers. I asked the question, if education is the engine of growth, why are you certifying the growth of this country? And why are you diminishing the importance of this unit? Then you had the dreadful means test. And Madam Speaker, I want to ask the question, what does the Ministry of Education and the Ministry of Education and the government of Trinidad and Tobago have against people who have attained the age of 50? That is a mature time that people want to study and they want to change careers as well. But what you have done, you have denied them any access to the GATE program. You have said as well that only accredited institutions. Madam Speaker, I want to tell you the truth. In the 5 years that we were there and under the Ministry of Tertiary Education, we accredited 12 institutions in this country. Ask this P&M government and this Ministry of Education, how many they have accredited? None. 1. So we did 12, you did 1. I don't know if you have any more in the horizon. But you're saying that only accredited institutions will be entitled to the GATE program. Madam Speaker, we talk about the postgraduate. We talk about the diversification. And I want to just say, under the People's Partnership, we were aligning what we were training the students with respect to what the economy required. We are not simply telling you, go and study. And when you finish, what you will do, and what this government is doing, they're adding to 2 things that I described. Number 1, I describe it as a graduate glut. And secondly, as a discouraged graduate. That is what you laugh at. You create frustrations in the hearts of these young people who can't get a job. And before now, OJT used to be something that is looked down upon. People who are losing their jobs daily are begging for an OJT job between the ages of 16 and 35. And you are saying that you got $38 million extra in the midterm budget to do what? To recruit 400. I hope the 400 that you're recruiting is through OJT and not workers for the election for the PLM, you know. Madam Speaker, I want to just indicate that one of the things that I am proud to say, that under Mr. DeSessa we launched, and you can't change the sign, and you can't move Natalie from where she parked up. Natalie is parked up at the Camden Airstrip in Couva, the UTT Aviation Campus. And they don't like to hear the slogan, I'm going to repeat it. From cotton cane to flying plane. And Mrs. Bisasa indicated in a previous presentation that when she returns as the next Prime Minister, we will open the airport at Camden and Couva. And I want to say, for example, when you look at Puerto Rico, we can take the lesson for Puerto Rico. When I was in college, I used to read a book called Caribbean Lands by John Macpherson. And in that, we used to look at a process and a policy in Puerto Rico called industrialization by invitation. Now Puerto Rico is a blazer in aviation and aerospace engineering. We too can do that in Trinidad and Tobago, right here in Camden, Couva. Madam Speaker, as I talk about the GATE program, I want to ask the Minister of Education, and I want to read here for him to answer. I want to ask him, he said he made a release, additional resources will be provided to the FGAD, that is the Funding and Grants Division. The government will consider additional funding, offering education savings bonds for GATE. Where the savings bond? Where's the National Education Savings Plan? Where's that? I hope you'll be able to answer. Madam Speaker, in the 2 minutes that I have, I want to also say, how much? 5 minutes. 5 minutes. In the 5 minutes that I have remaining.
1 minute. 3:01:23.
1 minute? Okay. Well, in that case, Madam Speaker, I will have to move now. I was going to call out the accomplishments of the People's Partnership, and particularly in the field of education. But since I have that time, and I'm now given some extra time by the member for Moruga, I want to indicate, Madam Speaker, I want to conclude with this. Madam Speaker, my colleagues who will speak after me and I will show beyond the shadow of a doubt that this PNM government and Minister of Education have failed our country. They have failed the hopes of our citizens to a good education, to better jobs. They have failed the future of our youth. You have failed, but what you have done with you have been able to say to this country that you will get help from your friends, your family, and your financiers. Madam Speaker, I want to say to this government and the Ministry of Education, find our next find an opportunity, and do us a big favor by relieving us of the suffering you have placed on this country. And I want to say another and find a fast date for the next general elections. Stop fooling the people. I end with some Fs now, Madam Speaker. Farewell, farewell, farewell. Welcome the next Prime Minister, Mrs. Kamla Prasad. I beg to move. I beg to move.
Madam Speaker, I beg to second the motion and to ask your permission to speak later in the proceeding.
Honourable members, the motion being seconded, I shall now propose the question for debate. Be it resolved that this House condemn this government for its gross failure in the education sector and the resultant detrimental effect on generations of students. Minister of Education.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. The member for Shogunas East has been nurtured by me over a number of years. And today, I am very disappointed in him. It makes me feel, it makes me wonder where I went wrong as a school principal. But I can understand, Madam Speaker, I can understand, because in his opening remarks, he said that his contribution was aided by Dr. Gopeesingh in the construct of this motion. And therefore, I can understand why this motion is so vacuous and this motion is failing. I can understand why this motion is so hollow, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the member for Shogunas East said publicly, and he told this chamber that he served with distinction.
Of course.
Madam Speaker, as a former school principal, if I had to grade him, I would grade his performance as F, failure. Madam Speaker, throughout his presentation, he laced his presentation with a tissue of untruths. He said this government closed down UTT. Madam Speaker, not one campus in UTT has been closed down, not one. Show me the one campus or the two campuses that have been closed. Not one. He said that we have closed down YTEP. YTEP is alive and kicking, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, he said that we closed down MIC. First of all, I'd like to inform the member that MIC has been rebranded and is now MIC IT. Yes. And MIC is moving. And MIC is flourishing, even in the area of Laventille, where it is doing human service to the people of Laventille. And Madam Speaker, I know of what I speak because I contributed to the success of MIC, having worked there for 2 years. And therefore, when the member for Chaguanas East speaks about closing down MIC, that is totally false. Madam Speaker, he said that we closed down 17 primary schools. I think it was a Freudian slip when he mentioned Belmont Boys RC School, Belmont Boys RC Primary, because that school is in operation. It is in operation, attended by all 600 students. You don't know where Belmont is? Apparently doesn't know where Belmont is, apparently.
I grew up there.
Madam Speaker, today I had the opportunity of responding to 2 questions in Parliament. And I will use part of my response to respond to a question that he asked. And he asked, why is it that 7 ECC centers were closed? And I take the opportunity, Madam Speaker, to respond in like manner to which I responded earlier on. And that is, because of the paucity of documentation and because of the billion-dollar debt left by the previous government.
Oh, yes.
Those were the reasons why we have not been able to open some of those ECC centers. He asked another question, why was NESC closed? Madam Speaker, the answer to that is quite clear. In those centers that he referred to, the registration was extremely low. In some of the centers, you had 1 person who registered. How could you run a center with 1 person registered? Obviously.
We transfer them to a more active center.
Madam Speaker, I will talk about laptops in a while. So I leave that for the time being. And he spoke about the cut in scholarships. Madam Speaker, this government, when we came into office, we decided to put a cap on scholarships, and that cap is 400. And since then, when we have been granting scholarships on the basis of the CAPE examination, we have found that it is those students who have done their work and who has been able to score very high grades. And that is the reason why we have had a cap of 400. Madam Speaker, he spoke about special needs schools. And he gave the impression that there are no special needs schools. He spoke about autism. 2 weeks ago, I had the opportunity of meeting with a person who is one of the providers of services for children who are afflicted with autism. And we have come together to draw up a program where we are going to assist those children with special needs. In fact, Madam Speaker, recently we launched an education policy paper. And in that paper, we spoke extensively about children with special needs and how we are going to deal with those children with special needs. In Trinidad and Tobago, Madam Speaker, there are 13 private schools that offer assistance to those children with special needs, and they receive extensive funding from this government. And Madam Speaker, there are 12 government schools that are wholly owned by the government, and the government is responsible for meeting the needs of those children. But that is not all, Madam Speaker. What we have put in place and what we plan to do is that each of the education districts, we have identified 3 schools in each of the education districts that will provide exclusively assistance to those children with special needs. And that is the first time that we are seeing this in this country. Madam Speaker, he spoke about the delay in textbooks. When we came into office, we found that the system of textbooks was one that was rooted in corruption. And I make no apology in saying that. What we had was what was called the free choice. So the principals were able to choose whatever textbook they wanted. That resulted in a plethora of textbooks that flooded the market with very high prices. We decided to curb this undesirable practice. And as a result, Madam Speaker, we appointed the Learning Materials Evaluation Committee, LMEC. And that committee, 2 weeks ago, reported to us, and we were very pleased with the report. Very soon, we're going to make that report public, and we're going to let the public know what is our position with respect to textbooks at our schools, ECC centers, primary schools, and the secondary schools. Madam Speaker, I just couldn't understand the reasoning behind the member for Chaguanas East when he spoke about the cut-in meals with respect to the school feeding program. Everyone knows that there was a lot of wastage where that program was concerned. And what we decided to do, we formed a committee, Madam Speaker, a committee comprising a representative from the National Parent Teachers Association, a representative from the Trinidad and Tobago Unified Teachers Association, a representative from NSDSL, that is the school feeding program, and of course, a representative or representatives from the Ministry of Education. It was as a result of the deliberations of that committee that it was decided that we're going to ensure that what is offered to our students in our schools was more palatable. We ensured that efficiency was a hallmark of the company's operations. And as a result, we were able to cut back on a lot of waste, colossal waste that was familiar with this program. And that resulted in the saving of approximately $20 million. That was the extent of the waste. Madam Speaker, he spoke about the primary school in chaos. I don't know where you got that information from, the primary school in chaos. He showed absolutely no evidence to state that our primary school system is in chaos. He spoke about the CAC, the continuous assessment component. Madam Speaker, when we came into office, we found the CAC was a runaway horse. What we found was that instead of doing the job of assessing the performance of our students, we found that it morphed into another essay exam. Examination papers were printed and sold. A virtual industry had developed with respect to the CAC. We found that there was absolutely no connection between the need for assessing the performance of our students and the essay and the CAC exam. What we did, Madam Speaker, we did not remove the CAC. And of course, I don't expect the member for Chaguanas East to understand that. We removed the CAC from the SCA exam because the SCA exam, as we have been saying all along, is a high-placed selection exam. It is an examination that is used to select students from primary school to secondary school. And the CAC, as was configured, was not dealing effectively with that. The CAC, the assessment continues in our primary school and in our secondary school. And in fact, to ensure that this is done, we have ensured that curriculum supervisors and curriculum officers visit the schools on a regular basis, meeting with the subject teachers and providing them with the clinical supervision that is necessary. And as a result of that, we have seen a marked improvement in the performance of our students at the primary level. And therefore, it is a fallacy to say that the primary school system is in chaos. Totally false. Madam Speaker, this is a joke. The member for Chaguanas East spoke about the primary school curriculum, and he made it sound as though he knows so much about the primary school rewrite.
I think he was joking.
It's obvious he knows very little about it.
Yeah, it's obvious.
I acknowledge the fact that the primary school rewrite was done under the administration of the previous government.
Thank you.
Yet, today, the member for Shogunas West stood before us and criticized that innovation in education. Obviously, he doesn't understand. He has absolutely no understanding of what education is involved with. He spoke about the Student Support Services Division. Madam Speaker, when we came into office, the Student Support Services Division was in chaos.
Chaos.
And you know why it was in chaos? Madam Speaker, the person who headed that division was a relative of the former Minister of Education. Soon after, we had to depart with the services of that person because that person's performance, just like a relative, was poor, abysmal. He spoke about the learning enhancement centers.
Gopeesingh is the Gujarati word for abysmal.
Very glibly, he criticized the learning enhancement centers, not providing any empirical data. I have the evidence, Madam Speaker. I have the data. And I get those data not only from our school supervisors, but from the guidance officers who supervise those students at those centers.
And social workers.
And the social workers. And the information that has come to us at the Ministry of Education is that those centers are performing creditably.
And you believe that? Yes. Because it's true.
Madam Speaker, another laughable matter is the homework centers. Those of us on this side, those of us who are responsible and those of us who are knowledgeable of the system would realize that these homework centers came to a crashing halt in 2015, in May 2015, during the tenure of the former government. The member for Caroni East made it appear as though this government was responsible for the closure of the homework centers. We had absolutely nothing to do with the closure of the homework centers. That was achieved by the opposition when they were in government. And when we did our analysis, what we found? We found that there was absolutely no provision made by that administration in the budget in terms of financing. Absolutely none. There was a steady decline in the attendance of the students at those centers. Small wonder, Madam Speaker, that those centers came to a crashing halt in May 2015. Let me repeat the date, May 2015, before this responsible government came into office. Madam Speaker, he spoke about GATE. I happen to be the representative of the government and the University of the West Indies. And because of the position that I hold as the representative of the government, I have the occasion to attend a number of meetings of the University of the West Indies throughout the Caribbean. Madam Speaker, when I interface with other ministers of education from other Caribbean territories, they are in awe at our GATE program. They are complimentary of our GATE program. Barbados, a few years ago, not too long ago, decided to curtail totally their contribution with respect to the support that they give to their students who attended the University of the West Indies. They wished that they had the foresight of putting in place a program of GATE that we have in place in Trinidad and Tobago. And yet, the member for Shogunas East has the audacity to stand before us today and criticize a program that has been highly recognized and accepted throughout the Caribbean. He spoke about dollar for dollar. Yes, it was dollar for dollar. But the dollar for dollar made sure that it kept out a certain section of the community, because you had to contribute at least 50% of your tuition fees. The GATE, which is a PNM thing, and I say it again, the GATE is a PNM initiative, made tertiary education free to those who cannot afford it, to those who need it most. Madam Speaker, all of us know that a task force was appointed to look into the whole GATE program. The task force comprised persons from all sectors of the country. And the report of the task force afforded us to move in a certain direction that really put the GATE program into prominence, so that today we are very proud of our achievement where GATE is concerned. What we have been able to do is to stop program hopping. The member spoke about program hopping. There was a large amount of program hopping. In other words, a person or a student would register for program A, and after the first semester, he will register for program B, and so on. Program hopping, which really cost this government a tremendous amount of money. We were able to put a stop to that. So therefore, there's no longer a program hopping. In other words, this government has been able to stabilize the GATE program that was a runaway horse under their administration. Madam Speaker, I now come to some of the areas in the recitals that were identified by my good friend. You know, the member for Caroni East has been closely associated with me for a number of years. I'm sorry that today I have to disown him. He spoke about the decline in educational performance. The member for Shogunas East, he said, there has been a marked decline in educational performance. I wonder where he got that information from. Because the information that is available to us shows that there has been an increase in the performance of our students at both primary and secondary schools. And Madam Speaker, I'm not saying this because I stand before you. I'm saying this on the basis of information that is available to me. And let me quote some statistics, because on this side, we like to provide data to support our argument. You would notice, Madam Speaker, throughout the contribution of the member for Shogunas East, there was absolutely no provision of data. It was just rattling, rattling, rattling. Mm-hmm. Absolutely no provision of data to support and to substantiate what you are saying. We are more responsible than that, and I can tell you. Let's look at some data. Between 2016 and 2018, the period, the highest pass rate for students was achieved. And I can tell you, students with 5 or more CSEC subjects, the pass rate ranged between 58.1% to 60.2%. That is a tremendous achievement. I remember, Madam Speaker, when I was at school and I wrote the GC O-level exam at that time. That's a long time, yes? But at that time, there were only 15 students who gained 5 or more passes. Only 15, among about 120-something students. Now, we have a pass rate of 58.1% to 60.2% of those students with 5 or more CSEC passes. A tribute to this government and what we have done in education. The period 2011 to 2015, the pass rate ranged between 44.6% and 58%. Obviously, we have showed tremendous improvement. Students with maths and English, Madam Speaker, as all of us know, maths and English are two essentials where this examination is concerned. And for the period 2016 to 2018, the pass rate ranged between 54% to 56.5%, a tremendous achievement. Whereas in 2011 to 2015, it ranged between 34.5% to 54%. These are figures that have been supplied to us by our department at the Ministry of Education. Madam Speaker, I am not prepared to stand before this August House to give false information. And I'm going to show, yes, how speakers on that side have been accustomed to providing false information without a clue of the facts that are needed to substantiate that information. Madam Speaker, in Cape, when we look at Cape, a similar trend emerges. For the period 2016 to 2018, in Unit 1, we have achieved a pass rate of 95%. For the period 2011 to 2015, the pass rate ranged between 92 to 94.6%. At Unit 2, Madam Speaker, for the period 2016 to 2018, the pass rate ranged between 94% and 94.71%. And the period 2011 to 2015, it ranged between 91.6% and 94.1%. Obviously, there has been an improvement. Madam Speaker, the member for Shogunas East spoke about the decline in the area of discipline and violence in our schools. When I took office as Minister of Education, ably supported by the Minister in the Ministry of Education, Dr. Lovell Francis, we worked together assiduously to ensure that we can bring to an end the scourge of violence and indiscipline in our schools. Because we met a school system that was rampant with indiscipline and violence. We met a school system, member for Caroni East, I want you to listen. We met a school system where violence was the order of the day, where there were fights and bacchanal and disrespect throughout the school system. Dr. Francis and myself decided that we were going to put an end to this. Madam Speaker, you would realize, and all of us would realize, that violence and indiscipline is no longer on the radar. We have been able to achieve tremendous successes where that is concerned. We have been able to achieve tremendous successes where that is concerned. And this is simply because what we have put in place in our school system, You spoke about the management system, the school-based management system. We have been able to tighten up on so many things. What we have found, two things we have found, Madam Speaker. One is that the violence in some instances has migrated out of the school because the students know that they can't continue with their nonsense in the school. And the second thing that has emerged is that there are some persons with deranged minds, Mr. Caroni East, who would post on social media instances of fights and so on that transpired 5, 6, 7 years ago. That's one. And secondly, incidents of indiscipline and violence that occurred in other countries.
That's right. Yeah.
Look at it and you'll see. But Madam Speaker, to top it all, we had a situation today that cannot be denied by Oropouche West or anybody on that side. Today, most of our secondary schools were affected because someone with some deranged mind decided to post on social media a bomb scare. Schools that were affected, just let me name some of the schools that were affected. St. Mary's College, St. Joseph's Convent, Port of Spain, St. Joseph's Convent, St. Joseph, St. George's College, Fatima College, to name a few. And the objective was to disrupt the exams. And you know, people on this side would deny that. That was the objective. That was the objective. Terrorists. That was the objective.
Terrorists.
Terrorists.
Yeah.
Back up, terrorists.
4 and 6.
48, 4 and 6.
Member for Arima, in terms of the accusation, I will rule against it. In terms of the term, I consider it unparliamentary. Okay?
Thank you very much for your guidance.
He was never call you anything.
So, Member for Arima, yes, I'll ask you to withdraw the use of that particular T word. Okay?
I have absolutely no problem with withdrawing, and thank you very much for your guidance. But I want to say, Madam Speaker, is that we have reported that matter to the police and the cybercrime unit. And those...
Honourable Member for Arima, your speaking time is now expired. You're entitled to 15 more minutes to wind up your presentation.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. We have reported that matter to the police and the cybercrime unit. And before long, we are assured that those persons or person who are responsible for that act will be found out. Will be found out. And it is passing strange, Madam Speaker, that the person who has been parading on social media, where this is concerned, is a person that we well know, who is well known to all of us. I don't need to call his name.
Yes.
But he'll be found out, and those scoundrels, to use a word that is often used by my friend from Untitled West, those scoundrels will be identified.
And we know that he goes very low and he sings very low.
Madam Speaker, you know, we talk about laptops, we talk about laptops, we talk about laptops. I just don't understand why Shogunas East doesn't understand that this government took a more responsible approach with respect to the delivery of laptops to our school system. should I say again, Madam Speaker, the distribution of laptops to children without any clue as to how they're going to use it, without any training for teachers who are really supposed to infuse this into their curriculum, without ensuring that the infrastructure was put in place. Not at all. Laptops were given, very poor quality laptops, they were given to the students, and what resulted? Those laptops were used as games for the children. And I know very well. I have 2 grandchildren who were given laptops, who reside with me, and within 2 months, those laptops were no more. They couldn't work again. The previous administration distributed laptops without a thought of how these laptops were going to assist in the provision of quality education, which is our mantra. Madam Speaker, we have developed what we refer to as a 5-star ICT policy that has as its main focus governance and administration of the laptops. We want to make sure that the laptops are used effectively, that they are used for the purpose for which they are given. We want to ensure that our teachers are adequately trained so that they can use the laptops, so that the laptops could really be a tool that will assist in the development of the education system and in the development of learning and teaching. We want to ensure that the infrastructure is put in place so that we would have proper bandwidth, proper connectivity, so that throughout the school, the laptops would be used. And we want to ensure the security of the laptops. So we did not give the laptops to go home and play games. The laptops resided in school where there were strong and stringent security systems so that, Madam Speaker, the laptops will have a more durable life. And this is why we are seeing so much progress in the area of ICT in education, aided and abetted by the laptop system that we have put in place, that this government has put in place. Madam Speaker, the member spoke about textbooks. I mentioned just now of the Learning Materials Evaluation Committee. That committee, as I stated previously, has reported to us, and very soon the report will be made public. But what we have found, as I visit schools, member for Maruga, my fellow minister, and I, and other senior officers of the Ministry of Education have been visiting schools throughout the country. And one of the things that we have found at Cuba South is that wherever we go, and whichever school we go to, there were hundreds of textbooks hidden in cupboards, not being used. It was a colossal waste. We have decided that we are going to take a different approach where the textbooks are concerned so that we can do a number of things. One, the textbooks would be in such a state that they will be able to serve the purpose for which they are designed. Two, we'll cut out corruption. Madam Speaker, just let me relate to you an experience of mine. When I first came into office, after a few weeks, a contractor, not a bookseller, a contractor came to me at my home, and he presented to me a stack of bills, $100 bills. And he told me, Mr. Garcia, here is your 10%. $50,000, here's your 10%. Because we have been told that whenever we finish a contract and whenever we are paid, we are to make a contribution of 10%. And here's your 10%. Madam Speaker, I stand on the grave of my son. And I can tell you what I say here is the truth. And I told that contractor where to get off. Because in his estimation, for him to get further employment, he had to give the minister a 10% cut.
What?
That is the level.
No.
Madam Speaker, I stand
On what?
on 48.4
On
and
what?
48.6.
Yes.
48.4 and 48.6.
Yeah.
We have to ask.
You have to give the minister.
We have to ask two.
Member for Port of Spain South, remember you are acting as leader of the House, okay? Yes, so a higher standard is expected of you. Member for Caroni East, I overrule you.
Jittery
Member
still-
for Rima.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Thank you very much. You know, my colleague from Tobago West just said, why is he so jittery? I don't understand. Madam Speaker, mention was made of the school feeding program. Again, there was widespread wastage, and it was an affront to the taxpayers who expended large amounts of money. And what we did was to rationalize the school feeding program to ensure that those who received meals were those who deserved the meals. Madam Speaker, when we came into office, we met a situation where the economy of this country was at a low ebb, very, very low. And as a result, each member of government on this side took a 5% cut in his or her salary. And what we did, we used that money to assist a charitable organization that resided in our communities. Madam President, I chose to use my 5% cut to assist the Abilene Wildcat Athletic Club for 2 years. I have had the opportunity of working closely with that club, and only last Saturday, I attended the grand athletic meet of that club. But what is significant, Madam President, is that, Madam Speaker, thank you very much. What is significant is at the recently held World Relays, Trinidad and Tobago was able to score a gold medal. Do you know, Madam Speaker, that 3 of those athletes and their coach belong to the Abilene's Wildcat Club? Let me repeat that, Madam Speaker. 3 of those athletes of the 4 and their coach, Charlie Joseph, are members of the Abilene's Wildcat Athletic Club, a club that I assisted for 2 years. It tells us, and I'm sure it tells all the entire country, that the decision that was taken by our Prime Minister and the members of government to assist those charitable organizations was money well spent. So different from what we saw in the previous administration, so different. Madam Speaker, in the few minutes that I have left, I come again to the preposterous argument and position of the member of Caroni East when he said that under his administration that he started and completed 106 schools. Madam Speaker, I have here an extract from Hansard, and I'm going to read it. And I don't know how he can deny what is written in Hansard. I will find it, have no fear. Have no fear. Well, my trace will be built, have no fear. Have no fear. Sunny Ladu will be built also, have no fear. Madam Speaker, the member for County East, in his contribution on the 13th of May, 2019, told this Parliament that early childhood care and the childhood education centers were constructed and completed, and 31 primary schools which restarted and completed. 31 primary schools which restarted and completed.
Correct.
Madam Speaker, you know this is my pet peeve. Tunapuna Government Primary School. He has listed this as one of the schools that he has started and completed. Any one of us who pass along the bus route would see that school, as I've been saying over and over. I went to Hillview College. Since age 12, I've been traveling there. In those days, we would go there for train to take us home. And the Tunapuna Government Primary School was there all the time. And Mr. Ford was there. Yes. And how can the member for County East have the audacity to tell this Parliament that he has started and built that school? It is symptomatic of the misinformation that has been spewed by those on this side. And therefore...
On that side.
On that side, yes, on that side. And Madam Speaker, I reject totally and completely the falsehoods that are contained in this motion. I am totally disappointed in my once very good friend for having the temerity to stand before us and spew so much untruths. Madam Speaker, this government and this administration has done exceptionally well where education is concerned. Thank you very much.
Member for Caroni East.
Madam Speaker, after hearing the member for Arima, I understand why the finance minister buffed him up. But anyway, if I'm to give a grade for his presentation, he's ungraded, Madam Speaker. It's not even vacuous and hollow, but without any merit whatsoever. And therefore, all the things that he has brought forward here today, I am amazed at the difficulty he has in presenting it, because he's not even feels strongly within himself that he could make that presentation. Madam Speaker, in 3.5 years, in a short period, all the gains that were made in the education sector over the 5 years by the Kamala Prasad administration, and the member for Sapara being a former minister of education between 1997 and 2000, they have been swiftly erased with precipitous decline emanating from our education system. And it is very sad where this PNM government is taking our education sector back to where we were more than 20 to 25 years ago. Very, very sad, Madam Speaker. And two ministers of education and the Prime Minister must hold themselves responsible for this decay in our education system. And I'm not saying it alone. I am just observing and hearing wherever you go what people are saying, Madam Speaker. And it's very sad to see what is happening in our education system now. And I will go on to give more details of it. The people are speaking about it, the principals, they are speaking, the teachers, and they're saying, what is the present Ministry of Education doing? Absolutely nothing. And I have called for the removal of the Honorable Minister at least 31 occasions. 31 occasions. Because we have found the Honorable Minister of Education lacks the competence and the ability to do what is required in the education system. But that's the state of play that we are in today. Madam Speaker, I will illustrate the areas where, in one of the 8 areas that my colleague and myself drafted together, the decline in the educational performance. And I will indicate what areas we consider this government to have failed in. And it might not be in the right order at the moment, but they will all be significant. Termination of the continuous assessment component. Removal of significant aspects of physical education and visual and performing arts, and morals and values and ethics and citizenry development and character development and agri-science and health and family life education from the SEA curriculum. They have reduced support for the tertiary education system, the GATE, as has been enunciated by my colleague. They scrapped the computer laptops for 3.5 years for secondary school students. Denial of textbooks for students across the country. That students had to be coming, parents had to be going to MPs' offices across the country, asking them to give some help so that they can get their textbooks for their children. That is the stage that we reached. Shutdown of the 402 homework centers, which I will speak about. And many schools remain closed at the start of the term. At one start of the term, there were 25 schools that remain closed. Significant classroom interruptions in some cases for up to several weeks because of issues pertaining to the state of buildings, facilities, or amenities. Forced and repeated closures of a number of schools for sewer, pigeon droppings, and a myriad of other pressing issues. And many times you would hear our colleagues asking about the schools within their constituencies, and even on the other side they would be asking. No further construction of the 62 schools that we left. The 6 secondary schools, the 19 primary schools, and the 19 and 6, 25, 37 ECC centers. So, Madam Speaker, we left 62 schools for them to continue to construct. And after nearly 4 years, they have done absolutely one thing. And the only reason why we can say that is because of political spite and viciousness and vindictiveness. They don't want to open Kuva Hospital. They don't want to construct any more schools. And when the minister comes today to try to nitpick about the schools that we built, 106 schools, we built them. Yeah. And we showed them that recently with all the photographs of the 106 schools that we built. And they're coming, I will respond to it. And these schools have been left in ruin and decay. My colleague from Cova South always speaking about the Sonny Lado School. The Sonny Lado School is completed. They just needed about 50,000 to get the electrical inspection done and completed. But today, snakes running around in the school, 100% completed. Yes, that is just one example. The cutbacks in the school feeding program, non-payment to service providers of meals to students, they have to have them languishing on a daily basis. When are we going to be paid by the National Schools Dietary Services Limited? Late payment of stipends to national scholars. Major reversals in achievement levels at the maths and English at both SEA and CSEC levels. I'll speak about that. The school security system, terrible and pathetic. The horrible blunder in the early naming of a new chancellor of the University of the West Indies. Denying essential funding to 14 private special needs schools. They took long to pay them. The children were suffering in the schools, and they wouldn't pay the private special needs schools. EFCL, serious allegations of corruption, bid rigging, abuse of office, squander and worker victimization, reckless errors. And even then, we had a photograph of a minister, personal secretary going up to ask somebody to get a check, to get a check filled out. Then there were reckless errors in the language arts and mathematics papers of the SEA examination. The proposal to ban the use of mobile telephones at schools is typical of the regressive Minister of Education. Vacancies in the teaching service, with only the part replacement of teachers who have retired. School guidance officers were forced to take action because of long outstanding debts in allowances and dues. These school guidance officers were not being paid. Mr. Garcia, the minister was dismantling the all-important Student Support Services Division which provided a wide array of psychosocial intervention programs to students in need. We had about 700. We brought it down to about 350, fired almost about 350 of them who were in contracts. Essential posts have been left vacant, and professionals are often denied timely payment. The People's Partnership Government had appointed 700.
Madam Speaker.
Okay, so Member for Carinese, you know, while you can refer to your notes, it's a debate, so you can't read, but I know you will refer to your notes and develop your debate, and so please continue.
That is what he stands on. That's what you stand on? I have so much things to say. How can I?
Member for Carinese.
Yeah.
don't waste your precious time, please. I've ruled. Continue.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Just stop there now. Stop there now.
Non-renewal of local school boards which had identified and assisted students with challenges. Sharp cutbacks of effective and modern school safety and security measures. Scrapping of the Parents in Education Initiative, in which some 30,000 parents and guardians were directly involved in their children's education. Student transport and other service providers were being owed large sums of money, placing several of their children in precarious financial positions. SEA students became unsure of placements at private primary schools. So these are just some of the areas, Madam Speaker, where we have shown, this is just a small summary of the decline in the educational performance and standards in by the present Ministry of Education. Madam Speaker, the Minister of Education has come on this Parliament almost on every occasion and decried the laptop initiative, which Mrs. Bissessar, as Prime Minister, ensured as soon as we got into government. When she indicated in her manifesto that we would provide laptops to all students in Form 1, the then opposition, led by Dr. Rowley, began to say, why are we giving laptops to Dunsehead children? Then they began to say they will steal their laptops. Then they will use it for pornography. We firewalled these laptops. One laptop was stolen, and it was retrieved, and the person went to jail for 9 months. So there was gross untruth emanating from the Honourable Minister himself, and very distasteful. In fact, they're very misleading. And I don't want to use these, but I think it is very deceitful and hypocritical statements coming from the minister and the government, and are ill-founded with gross untruths and are meant to deceive and fool the population. And when these untruths were perpetuated from one who is responsible for 250,000 children, it is appalling and I would say astounding. Madam Speaker, it said that he always said there was inadequate training of teachers, insufficient laptops for use by teachers, limited internet access, a large number of non-functional laptops, and then he went on to say that research conducted locally and internationally indicated that laptops did not link to academia. That's what they were saying. They said, and today he repeated it again, he said that they were poor quality and overpriced. Well, previously they said overpricing of the laptop. First of all, let me address the training of teachers. My information from the Ministry of Education, given to me, subsequent to my demeeting, is that we were training approximately 2,900 teachers per year on an average, were trained in ICT for a 5-year period, Madam Speaker. In the area of computer literacy, they got ICT resources, technology education, teaching and training in digital literacy. And the periods of training were essentially over a 3-day period, with teachers accessing more than one session depending on areas of need. The training courses for teachers were aligned with knowledge deepening and knowledge creation levels at the UNESCO ICT competency standards for teachers. All principals and vice principals were trained in the use of ICT. Training for teachers was aligned to the 3 levels of UNESCO ICT competency standard for teachers at varying levels of the UNESCO standard. 41% of the teachers were at level 1, technology literacy, where they possessed the knowledge, skills, and aptitudes to interact with the technology. 38% of teachers were at level 2, which was knowledge deepening and possessing the knowledge, skills, and aptitudes to effectively use their technology in teaching. And 13% at level 3, with knowledge creation. That puts an untruth to the perpetual misinformation being spilled in Parliament and outside of Parliament by the government and the Minister of Education, saying that teacher training was almost absent. That is one. ICT skills, teachers. 83% of the teachers were using their laptops to create various documents using Microsoft Word. 65% of teachers were directing students to source information on the internet. This information has come from a research work done at the Ministry of Education by the ICT department and other officers. So from his own Ministry of Education, this is the information that has come forward. So what have I given you there? Puts a direct misinformation to what the present Minister of Education has been repeating all the time, saying that teachers were not properly trained. As far as the effectiveness of the program, we had deemed the ECAL program from approximately 70,000 students in the secondary school during the 5-year period. And that was a report done in 2015, which I'm quoting from. All students reported using their laptops for learning purposes. Over 70% of the students use their laptops daily or weekly to do homework and search for information using the internet. 71% of students have medium to high skill levels in creating and editing presentation using PowerPoint. And approximately 300,000 citizens across the country would have benefited from the giving of these 95,000 laptops to students and teachers and principals and so on, assuming that there were 3 or 4 people in a household and they shared it with their siblings and their parents. So approximately over 300,000 citizens in Trinidad and Tobago benefited and gained some knowledge of ICT sitting right there in their home. 66% of the students, that is 2 out of 3, reported that having their own laptop encouraged them to learn more. So this is part of the summary of the effectiveness of the laptop program. That is the second point. So when the Minister of Education comes to give to this House, and in public saying that the laptop program was a failure under us, that is being mischievous and hypocritical. And when they kept on saying that the laptop program was inefficient and useless, I mean, this, when you tell a lie, when you tell the untruth, a number of times people will want to believe it. But I have put an end to this untruth and misinformation which I've been speaking about. In our 125 secondary schools, we had 169 fully functional computer labs. Undeniable, Madam Speaker. 8,800 students access these computer labs on a weekly basis. We had 114 labs of these 169 equipped with 15 or more fully functional computers. Then we partnered with Samsung to have 21st century smart classrooms, each supplied with 30 PCs with laptops, with interactive whiteboards and high-speed internet access. And Cabinet had approved the provision of a number of different items which were supplied to the schools, and these are as follows. We got multimedia projectors, 698 for our 800+ schools, CD players, 450, photocopiers, 428, and television, 475. So we equipped all the secondary schools, plus almost all the primary schools, with a number of the equipment to enhance the learning capacity of students through the multimedia system using the laptops as well. So we had, out of the 445 primary schools in the country, we had over 363 of these with computer labs. So what is happening now? The students who entered Form 1 are in fact being deprived and who would have had the ability to go home and interact with their teachers and their siblings and their parents in searching for information and gaining more knowledge through that process. So they were deprived for 3.5 years. And they said that we didn't give to teachers. We gave almost 6,000 laptops to teachers, principals, and school supervisors. And such was the success of this program that the Prime Minister of St. Lucia sought the assistance of Mrs. Bissessa's government to assist him in providing laptops to their secondary school students. And we had a technical team that went across to assist them, and they entered their laptop program in 2013. That was a success. We were next to Uruguay. We were next to Argentina in our laptop program. We were the pioneers within the Caribbean. We were ranking with Russia, who supplied 3,000 of their schools with laptops. And President Obama at that time asked 10 of the IT companies to provide funding, to provide laptops for children in communities that were deprived and did not have the funding to have this type of intervention. And he received close to 10 by 100 billion. He received 1 billion in funding. President Obama at that time, Madam Speaker. Another misinformation that is being spread by no less a person than the present Minister of Education. And deliberate, mischievous. They said that our Wi-Fi capacity in schools was non-existent. 28% of the schools had up to 5 megabytes. 43% had between 10 to 25 megabytes per second. And my colleague from Mayaro will tell you how important that is. 28% of the schools had an average above 25 megabytes per second. In fact, 10 of the schools had bandwidth up to 100 megabytes per second. So such is the misinformation that they try to perpetuate to get into the minds of citizens, that the laptop program was no good, and that's why they didn't do it. It's because they couldn't accept the fact that the People's Partnership Government instituted a program that was beautifully managed, students benefited, a major idea from the Honorable Prime Minister before she even came into government, but it's something that they want to accept and didn't want to follow. Education is for all. There should be no politics in education. We sit on the same side as they are. We are all being educated, and education is continuous learning. So if something is working well, why stop it? Because of political spite? Because of political viciousness? No, you don't do that, Madam Speaker, and this government stands accused of that. They stand accused of that. So they're saying inferior quality. Madam Speaker, 2 of the 5 years, Hewlett-Packard won the bid. And these came through from the Central Tenders Board. And 3 years, Lenovo. Not one person in this country could say that there's any hanky-panky in the purchase of any of these laptops because they were properly managed by the Central Tenders Board. So 5 years, Madam Speaker. You know what laptops they have bought now for the children to put on the racks in school? The same Lenovo laptops. He just said 2 of his grandchildren, the laptops, in 2 days' time or 2 months' time, it mash up. Is the same Lenovo laptops that we bought for 3 years, is the same Lenovo laptops that they have, that they bought. So if they say that we had inferior quality, you go on to buy inferior quality. That puts a damp to a squid to their type of speaking all the time, Madam Speaker. Pure propaganda. Pure propaganda.
Your great-grandchildren, isn't it?
And then what about, in 2015, we were getting the laptops for $2,200 each. They bought 13,500 laptops for $63 million. The cost of that, you know how much it is? $4,500 for one. Wow. So 2,200 we were getting it for. It now costs them 4,500.
Double.
And to tell you about the specifications, they're so long, Madam Speaker, The processor speed was 1.66 gigahertz. The memory was 2 gigabytes. The size was 14 inches. The network speed up to 1,000 megabytes per second. Wireless network type, and so on. About 15 different areas of strength for that laptop, Madam Speaker. And the students benefited tremendously. So when Mr. Garcia speaks about the inferior quality of the laptops, that is quality of the laptops we had provided to the students, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, and the students, that one laptop per student policy contributed to the empowerment of students towards the developing and mastering of information and communication technology competencies and the achievement of digital literacy. And the introduction of that e-Car laptop initiative brought Trinidad and Tobago in line with emerging international best practice and afforded equity by leveling the playing field across the educational landscape. The poor child who couldn't afford a laptop, the parents were happy to see them with a laptop coming home with it. 71% of the students have medium to high skill level in creating and editing presentations using PowerPoint. 79% of students have competence in manipulating documents and applications. 62% of students can create and edit a spreadsheet. Over 70% of students use their laptops daily or weekly to do homework. 45% of students use their laptops daily or weekly to accomplish word processing and tasks. Some use it for educational software programs. Some use it for create and edit spreadsheets, and so on, Madam Speaker. The benefits were so tremendous, and to see this disappear, all as a result of the coming into this government, the population must take note of it. The population must take note of the deliberate propaganda they were trying to spread, that these laptops no good, they're good quality, the students wouldn't benefit from it. But yet still after 3.5 years, the population put pressure on them. They went and they do something to say they bring in laptops and they put it on a rack in school. Yeah, that's what they do, when the students could benefit by taking it home. Teachers incorporated the use of computer laptops in their teaching strategy, as well as for the preparation of lesson plans, schemes of work, and the development of assessment instruments. They utilize a range of ICT techniques, including creation of PowerPoint presentations, mastery of productivity tools such as Microsoft, Word, spreadsheets, and database management. In fact, these laptops, Microsoft gave us about 18 different applications to put on that laptop for the benefit of the students. Many teachers incorporated subject-specific software applications for reinforcement in the classroom. And 89% of teachers indicated they used desktop computers or laptops at school. So, Madam Speaker, I have much more to say on this. It's too much for me to go into this aspect of it. And this really has dealt with the total misinformation, as they had been wanting to do for the schools that we constructed, to tell the country we did not construct these schools. They went on to tell the population that the laptop program that we had was no good. I just gave you I gave you a full account of the benefits of the laptops for our students who went through from Form 1 to 5. I will now deal with the aspect of whereas there has been a decline in the educational performance standards and academic achievements during the current government administration. On a headline, Tuesday, 28 February 2019 Express, expert, education system needs complete overhaul. Friday, 18th January, Newsday, public schools not ready for autistic children. Additional scholars stranded without tuition fees. Monday, January 21st, The Guardian. Education system must do better. A high official of this country had to make a comment about the education system must do better because it had been failing. I can't repeat it. He's asking who is that. I will not take him on.
The honorable member. Yeah. Okay, but remember you're directing it here, so you don't have to respond. Okay, good.
Thank you for your undivided attention, Madam Speaker. Thank you very much.
country does.
So if a high official of this country saying that education system must do better, it means that something is wrong. We were on the move to carrying Trinidad and Tobago to be a world superpower in education. We were beginning to rank with South Korea and Finland and Japan. Yes, and Singapore. We were there. We were leaders in early childhood education, which I'll come to pretty shortly if I have the time. And 2018, they said the minister failing with SEA passes. And the article, Sunday, July 8, 2018, Guardian, Minister Anthony Garcia, after 3 years at the helm of the Ministry of Education, has presided over the steady but predictable erosion of the quality of education in Trinidad and Tobago. Wow. That's an article. The minister celebrated the few at the top of the SEA results, but ignored the thousands at the bottom of the SEA results. And while I'm on that, Madam Speaker, when we came into office in 2010, almost 14% of the students were getting less than 30% in the SEA marks. Year by year, we worked hard. And within the 2015, less than 1% of those students got less than 30%. Where there were 2,500 students getting less than 30%, we had less than 200 students. And only 39 had to repeat out of the 18,000. Wow. Such was the performance of the Ministry of Education at that time. Yes. And within 1 year, 2015 to 2016, the failure rate went back up to 15% of students getting less than 30% in the SEA. So what we labored on for 5 years, because of the systems that we left for them, he decided not to continue with those systems, resulting in the failure of almost 2,500 students. You know how painful it is for a mother to have a child that cannot get 30% of marks, Madam Speaker? Because of the system that they decided to put into place, archaic systems. They wanted to just reverse everything, that all the gains that we made. And then Tuesday, 5th of July, 2018, Guardian, Garcia worried about students under 30%. He created it, and he said that he's worried. Education Minister Anthony Garcia.
Member for Caroni.
Garcia.
Member for Caroni.
Yes, sorry.
Your original 15 minutes, your original 30 minutes are now spent. You're entitled to 15 more minutes. I understand that you have a lot of statistics, and therefore you have to rely heavily on your speaking notes.
And thank you for
but I still remind you that it is a debate. And I was recently reminded that you are here much longer than one term. So you're quite, adept in the art of debating.
Thank you. Madam Speaker, I'll just give some of the major issues. Government playing with children's education, mix-up of CSEC grading. Don't worry, Ministry assures Rio Claro pupils. Archbishop Joseph. He said, lobby the government on education. Thursday, December 14th, Newsday, 2017. People must lobby government to improve the school system, whose defects greatly contribute to this country's crime upsurge. Imploring outgoing Port of Spain Archbishop Joseph Harris, yesterday in his latest Ask the Archbishop broadcast on Facebook. Education system setting up children for failure. Newsday, Thursday, July 13th, 2017. Fatima Principal, the same Fatima Principal, your successor, calls for review of CXC results. Confusion over Cape grade changes, and so on, Madam Speaker. So I don't need to go much further to show, look another, creative writing scored lower than last year. That's another area where they failed. Decline of SEA standard due to reversal of PP's initiative. The Guardian, Friday, July 7th. And errors in SEA. Principal teacher in court for forging exam results. That is the mess in the education sector, Madam Speaker. That is the mess. And there's much more. Broken system for students with disabilities. Retrenchment warning at MIC. Ministry blanks 119 students. Special needs for SEA. Senator, autistic children need help. Additional scholars stranded without tuition fees. NPTA saying spend more on school feeding infrastructure. School feeding limps along. All these are articles within the daily newspapers, Madam Speaker. Parents training under costly books. Progress slowed in budget cuts. No money yet for special school. Student support showdown glooms. School for the blind shut down in protest. These are some of the headlines that went through the system over 16, 17, and 18. Then when we spoke about achievement, in 2010, the amount of students passing, the pass rate in Unit 2 at Cape was 88%. 2011, 93.3%. 2012, 91.6%. 2013, 92.3%. And 2014, 93.1%. And 2015, 93.9%. So from 88% passing Unit 2 in 2010, we went to 93.9%. Then English A in 2013, we moved up to about 61.4% in 2013, 2014, 61.7%, 2015, 64.6%. In mathematics, 41.9% in 2013 passed. In 2014, 55.2%, and in 2015, 61.1%. A jump from 41% to 61% in 3 years in mathematics. Physical education and sports, 92, 94, and 97%. Madam Speaker, schools closure. We spoke about the amount of schools. Biting insects keeping pupils, staff away. Pigeons mass mood school opening. Princeton Presbyterian to seek help from UN. Mosquito misery, pupils flee, spraying exercise. Frustration over incomplete school. Protests at Marabella Anglican for new school. Protests over delayed work at Rio Claro Astia. La Romaine parents want school repaired. Parents keep up school protests, Ramai Hindu and Princestown. More protests outside schools. School joins forces to protest. Tutor calls for action on La Romaine Secondary. Tutor declares La Romaine Secondary a fire hazard. Teacher walks out again, smelly sewer. More schools forced to close. 51 schools affected by floods and so on. That is the state of the school system under this present administration. Yeah. This is just the tip of the iceberg, Madam Speaker. Article 25, schools shut on first day. The minister used to come every day and say, well, all the schools open. Yeah. Daily Express, Tuesday, 4th September 2018. 25 schools shut on first day, and they listed all the schools, Madam Speaker. Then he wants to say that violence is a thing of the past in the schools. An editorial of The Guardian, April 22nd, 2016, early in their tenure. Violence threatens school stability. If we continue to collectively fail in our responsibility to cultivate safe learning environments across TNT, there will be repercussions intellectually, physically, socially, emotionally for future generations. Current economic challenges require spending cutbacks in many areas, but the recession must not be used as an excuse for not investing in desperately needed anti-bullying initiatives. This is an editorial from The Guardian. The high level of instability in schools threatens the entire country and could have very far-reaching consequences. Discipline and security still, Madam Speaker. Even the Minister of Education saying more must be done to keep schools safe. And he said today that's a thing of the past. Eh? Wow. Attacker duped security to enter school, misstabbed 6 times. Tutor slams attack on the principal. Principal attack with bat. Hinkson mural on UWI school, UWI campus slashed. Students push for safer schools. QRC students suspended for online video. Mother scared for boy's life. Female MTS guards in fear. Smoking students suspended. Suspended students in more hot water. Schools under-reporting abuse. Girls making and sharing porn.
It's a war zone.
And that is what he's saying, that is a thing of the past. and he stands proudly to say that discipline and security are of very high standard. Ganja girls suspended. Calls to relocate Success Laventille Secondary School. Parents keep...
Member,
yeah?
Caroni East, two things. It may be a matter of style, and while I don't expect that every time you'll say either the honorable member, the honorable, or the minister, or something like that, I think you could use that a little more than the he. That's it. The second thing is, while I may appreciate that you have a checklist that you have to go down, remember it's a debate, and I can't allow, in breach of Standing Orders 4410, just pulling together mishmashes of articles to be the body of your presentation. It is still a debate. And while, as I pointed out before, you may have to rely on your notes because you have a lot of statistics and so on, not the way in which you're just pulling together pieces of different articles to be the substance of your debate. Okay? Just remember, you've been here for a long time.
Yeah. Madam Speaker, I hear you, and we move on. Take your advice. The issue of the schools that we speak about, the minister, the government has been saying they don't have money to continue the construction of these schools. They say they can't find circumstantial evidence to show how much money they have to pay for the school, where they move. All 19 of these ECC centers, Madam Speaker, had been approved by IADB. And IADB has to approve the project consultant. They have to approve the contractor. So when they come here today to give this misinformation that they can't find this, and as an excuse for not completing the school, we do not accept that whatsoever. And we have the 62 schools which they have done nothing to, the 6 secondary schools, the 39 ECC centers, and the 19 primary schools. I wouldn't name it today, but on a subsequent time.
I want to hear that.
The continuous assessment component. We had consultations throughout the country, 2 national consultations, and 8 district consultations. Thousands of educators came together over a 1-year period, and they said that we must introduce morals, values, ethics, citizenry development, character development, agri-science, music, dance, and drama. So to enable the students who don't have the strong academic ability to be able to start realizing their fullest developmental potential. We introduced that. What is not examined, what is not taught. So when the minister comes today and said that these are still on the curriculum, it's of no purpose because it's not being taught. And we had given 20% of the marks in the last 2 years for the SEA exam based on the assessment of students doing these. And it was working well. In one fell swoop, they came and they knocked it out altogether. And they even changed the date of the SEA from back to March. These thousands of educators said, you must give the children the opportunity in the final year of the primary school to have a full year of curriculum and therefore move it from March to May. And so we moved it, after 1 year, we moved it from March to May. As soon as they came in, they moved it back out again, Madam Speaker. And no reason for it. So, Madam Speaker, there are issues on tech work education, delayed payments to taxi drivers and to invigilators and to school cleaners and bus drivers. Yes, the maxi taxi drivers who transport children. Students, the maxi concessionaires, they protested. No payments to denominational schools, etc. Madam Speaker, so that is the performance of the Minister of Education. Delayed payments all through the country. So, Madam Speaker, in my 2 or 3 minutes left, I want to just tell about the achievements of the People's Partnership Government. Universal early childhood education. we were the first country in the world to achieve universal early childhood education. Mr. Ban Ki-moon, the United Nations Secretary General, congratulated Trinidad and Tobago at the CARICOM Prime Minister's Conference. The U.S. presidential candidate, Mrs. Hillary Clinton, congratulated Trinidad and Tobago for the work that we were doing in education. We got awards, universal awards, Madam Speaker. Literacy and numeracy were under improvement. Expansion of Caribbean vocational qualifications at the secondary school from 42 to 102 schools. We did pilot testing and neurodiagnostic testing of children. We changed the date of the SEA. The continuous assessment component was running beautifully. We improved academic performance. We had the best academic achievement in 2014 ever in the history of Trinidad and Tobago in CSEC, SEA, and CAPE, and we bettered that in 2015. That was the legacy of the People's Partnership Government under Mrs. Kamala predecessor that we led for. The infrastructure, I can't repeat the 106 schools that we built. We had adequate human resource management and full computerization within the ministry. We had organizational restructuring, career guidance. Minister Karim at that time and myself went through the country. We had 80,000 students participating in career guidance across Trinidad and Tobago. Parenting and education workshops. We had over 300 parenting and education workshops, and over 30,000 parents became involved in those. And we had a parenting academy starting. The student support services, they reduced it from 700 to 350, and they alone know why. And Madam Speaker, when we compare the manifesto with ours in 2015, one of the things they said then, and I want to read it, the PNM, replace all outdated or old and dilapidated schools with new modern buildings and facilities, and construct new schools in areas where they are most needed. They haven't built one school in Trinidad and Tobago in 3.5 years. And this is the 2015 manifesto of the PNM. Implement a comprehensive, efficient, targeted, timely, and sustainable school maintenance program to cope with the aging school infrastructure. Every day you hear the schools closing down, they can't open. So, Madam Speaker,
Member for Guyanese.
Time, all right, fine.
Your time is now spent completely. Members, we now take the suspension. We'll return at 5:05.